Yes, Sulam.
This week's Parsha is Toldot, and it begins Ve'elo Toldot Yitzchak ben Abraham, and this is the generations or the births of Yitzchak ben Abraham, and then it tells us Abraham holid et Yitzchak. So I explained this already on Sunday night, so we're going to start with the second pasuk. Then it says, by he Yitzchak ben Abayim Shana, Yitzchak was 40 years old, bekachto et Rivka, when he took Rivka. I'm reading from the Zohar, page Het. The Zohar says like this, by he Yitzchak ben Abayim Shana, v'shoel hakatot, omer ben Abayim Shana, lama, kan, l'spor et shenotav. Shahaya ben Abayim Shana, Kishanasa et Rivka. And the Zohar asks an obvious question. Why do I have to know how old Yitzchak was when he took Rivka? And the Zohar answers like this, with a little commentary from Rabbi Ashlag. Elavadesh Yitzchak nichlad b'tzafon v'darom shu eshumayim. Zohar says that Yitzchak was, even though we know that Yitzchak is left column, Avram is Chesed, and Yitzchak is Gevurah. Nonetheless, we understand that while Avraham was Chesed, he was also balanced with Gevurah. Why do we call him Chesed? Meaning that the dominion of Chesed, or the right column, had dominion over his left column. When we say that Yitzchak is left column, it doesn't mean that he was only left column, because no force in the world can operate like the bulb without a plus and a minus. This world cannot operate without plus and minus. Plus always means, and that's the way the original world, that's the way the Ein Sof began. Light and vessel. Plus and minus. What do you mean minus? The vessel is what draws. The light is what shares. So everything that exists after the Ein Sof follows the same principle of right and left. So therefore the Zohar tells us that Yitzchak was also Kalul. We should understand it, that although we say he's left column, but he was Kalul, he was inclusive of Tzafon and Darom. North, we know, means Gevurah, and Darom is Chesed, or fire and water. Baz haya Yisrael ben Abayim Shana v'kachto et Rivka Perush. So now we understand what the Torah wants to tell us. Ki vadayu sheYitzchak haya nechlal b'yamin, like you said before, that he certainly was inclusive, and therefore it says Ela Toldot Yitzchak ben Abraham. I mean, we already know that Yitzchak was the son of Abraham. Why does the Torah have to repeat again that he's the son of Abraham? But to tell us that Yitzchak is inclusive of both Chesed and Gvura. So now he has two Sfirot, Chesed and Gvura. Gam היה לו התקללות צפון ודרום יחד זה בזה שהוא תפארת. Now, the fact that he had plus and minus, since we are talking here after Tzimtzum Bet, after many things that happened after the Ein Sof, where we know there is an aspect of a third column, although Yaakov is Tiferet, Yaakov, by his physical presence, brought into this world the physical reality of Tiferet. But before Yaakov came into this world, Says the Zohar that in order for Yitzchak to be balanced, meaning that his right and left would not be in conflict, because right and left, or plus or minus, are always in conflict, so there had to be an inclusion of Tiferet. Ke'ein Tiferet el his kalalut chesed gvura. Therefore, Nemsa shahaya ba gimel svirot, chesed gvura in Tiferet. And therefore, he was now complete. Ubikachto et Rivka, and when he took Rivka, she saw the Malchut, because she is the Malchut. He seek gam et Malchut, and therefore Vayala Dalet Svirot, Chesed Gvura Tiferet, and therefore it says, when it says Vayi Yitzchak ben 40 shana, when it says that he was 40 years old, it doesn't want to tell us like the original question. We just want to hear how old he was, for whatever reason, and there's no reason, because it doesn't have any bearing. But says the Zohar, what the Torah wants to teach us here, according to Sod, according to the internal meaning of what it says, to tell us that Bekachto et Rivka, that when he took Rivka, then he became inclusive of all four Svirot, because for him, his Gevurah to be a force, and we use Yitzchak, but we must also understand that this force of Gevurah can only be established when there was a minimum of these four Svirot. And therefore it says that when he took Rivka, then he became 4, and of course we know each Svirah is inclusive of 10 Svirot, and therefore 4 times 10 is 40, and that's why the Torah tells us that he had 40, meaning when he took Rivka, then he became, only then did he become a total unified whole, and therefore the power of Yitzchak, which is Gevurah, became manifest physically in this world, but only because, and that only took place when he took Rivka. Then in the same pasuk, continues the Zohar, it says, Bat Betuel Arami. That Rivka was the daughter of Betuel Arami, from Aram, Mi Padan Aram, from Padan Aram, Akot Laban, and the sister of Laban, Arami, Loli Isha. Bat Betuel Arami, Mi Padan Aram, Achot Lavan Arami, says the Zohar, Mai ich patlan kulei hai. What do we need all these things? The Kvar Itmar ubetuel yavad et Rivka. At the end of Parshat Chaye Sarah, it says clear that about Rivka, that she was born, and she was born from Betuel, and now it's actually a repetition of the same thing. Why does the Torah here have to say this? That's the Zohar's question. Umeship, and he answers, Shula lamed af al pi shahayta ben to'im. Even though she was beat by people who are corrupt, he lo ashta kimasehem. The Torah wants to teach us that even though she was brought up by Betuel and in that country of Aram, which was corrupt, and was the brother of a corrupt person, Laban, she did not learn from them. Therefore, Ken Omer Shahayta Bat Betuel Umipadan Aram Achot Laban Shekulam Hayu Reshayim Lahara. They were all evil people, bent on only doing evil. Vi Ashta Masim Tovim Lo Asami Masehem. But she didn't learn from them. But there's an obvious question. How old was Rivka when she lived with her brother Laban, when she lived with her father?
She was born the day that Sarah died.
Yes. Zohar asks, if she was 20 years old or yoter, then you can say, well, even though she lived with these kind of people, she didn't learn from them, and she still conducted herself in a manner of proper behavior. But because, and even if she was even 13, says the Zohar, then you could say, well, look at that. Even living within the confines of such an evil atmosphere, she was only 3 years old. I mean, what? Mahu ashvach shalah shelo asak masayam. So the Zohar says, what? Still, why does the Torah have to repeat again to tell us? Since she was only 3 years old at the time when she left, so and certainly less than 3 years old, what could she have learned from them? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Bat Shalosh Shanim Hayta, Ve'im Zeh Asta Ela Evet Kol Osei Hamaseh, Mashma Behechrach, Shahaya La Sechel Kebat Esrim. That even though she was only 3 years old, obviously we have to say from what we understand, the way she carried the water and so on, this was not a normal 3-year-old child. The Torah here wants to tell us that she was 20 years old, and still in all, she had the sechel, she had the mind of a 20-year-old, even though she was only 3. She had the mind of a 20-year-old.
20 and 40. The 3 and 40.
And he says, what the Torah wants to teach us over here is something deeper. V'raza de milah, and the secret of the thing is as follows. Yitzchak ba mitzad Avraham, shu chesed elyon, v'ose chesed im kol habriyot. Yitzchak came from where? He came from chesed. He was born out of Avraham. Afal pi shehu din kasher, even though he himself was gevurah, din kasher, meaning he would be difficult with people, he would be hard with people, but still in all, he was inclusive of coming from the physical root of Avraham. And that's why the Torah is telling us this. She came from where? Even though she was only 3 years old. But because she was born from Betuel, and because of the environment of Laban, Ve'haya Yisra din kasher, Vehi din arafeh, Ki Rivka hayta mukefet bedinim kashim mitzad horeha v'anshe makoma, Aval hi atzma hayta din harafeh umemutat. Just as Yitzchak, even though he was din kasher, meaning he's gevurah, but because of the environment of Avraham and being born from Avraham, he was not the gevurah, meaning it was balanced. The same thing the Torah wants to tell us. Why was this a soulmate? Because Rivka, even though she was only 3 years old, and she was not as din kasher as Yitzchak, but the reason why she could be able to to be balanced with Yitzchak, because she was only 3 years old. And we're talking here about being a soulmate, being balanced. So the Torah wants to teach us that her environment and being born of Lavan, even though she herself was din rafeh, it was mumutak, it was soft, but in order to be a soulmate of Yitzchak, it required that there be din kasher too. Or not, there wouldn't have been a balance. She was soft, and he was. That's not balance. That's what the Torah wants to teach us here. That even though she herself and he's telling us she was only 3, so she could not be a difficult, a hard person, but because of her environment and where she was born from, just the opposite. She was born, Yitzchak was born from Abraham, who was chesed, and therefore his gevurah was tempered somewhat, the same way as her gevurah, which was already tempered. She was only 3. She couldn't have expressed herself even if she wanted to. But because of the environment, that, on the contrary, strengthened her gevurah, and therefore now her gevurah was on an equal basis as Yitzchak, and therefore that constituted a balance or soulmate between them, says the Zohar. And therefore, all of these aspects are mentioned to tell us that that's lowly isha. That's what made her his wife. That's what made her his wife. Then it says, "Vayeta Yitzchak laHashem lenochach ishta ki akarahi," because she was an akara. Vayeta, says the Zohar, Vayeta v'chata chatira lemala el hamazal hamashpia banim b'makom hahu. In other words, although we know the Zohar says elsewhere, and here also there's that there are three things that are established that come down through what we call mazal. What does it mean, mazal? That's the flow of the energy. Banim, chaye, umazona. In other words, how many children, if there will be children, how many will there be, if there will be? That's already mazal. That means that's an energy, that's the flow of the energy into this person or into these two people. That's fixed. Chaye, how long will a person live? Also, it's already in the DNA. We think a person lives, we don't know why a person dies when he dies. The truth of the matter is, his energy flow, or the energy that he receives, is an energy that is fixed to last as many years as the person will live. So whether he dies, chas v'sholom, through an accident, or he dies through an illness, what is the cause of what? Is it because he was involved, chas v'sholom, in a serious automobile accident, and that's why he died, or he contracted a particular disease, and that's why he dies? And the answer is, no, that's not the cause. The cause is the mazal. How many years he has. Now, for whatever reason, how does one die? Does he die a peaceful death? Or does he die a violent death? That already is not dependent on the mazal. But when that accident will happen, or when that accident will happen, or when the illness finally overtakes the person and causes the death, that is the result of the mazal. That is the result of the energy that flowed into this person.
Not necessarily.
What?
I mean, if they don't do their job, then they can go
You mean before? Yeah, chas v'shalom. Yeah, okay. Naturally, this is the time that a person can, will live. However, we know that during his lifetime, he can chas v'shalom shorten that period. He can have an influence on the mazal. Let's say it's even the I don't want to say the power in the DNA, because the DNA is only an instrument anyway. What? That's right. His spiritual DNA. That is what determines how long he's going to live. Okay? So here we're discussing ki akarahi, because she was a akara, meaning that she did not have the capability of having children. Akarahi. The Torah tells us that.
3 years old, was she?
What?
3 years
No,
old.
she was 23.
Well, no, now she's 23.
That's why he waited 10 years.
Right.
13, she couldn't, until 13 she couldn't have children.
That's right.
From
13.
Then he
First it
waited
was
10
13.
years that people are supposed to wait 10 years.
23.
Then 23, then he started praying.
Remember now, when we're
told her
talking,
60.
right now we're discussing that she's going to give birth, right? That he prayed for her, and and she became pregnant. Now, when did she become pregnant?
60.
When she was 23,
He was 60.
and he was 60. Now, at age 13, she could have given birth already, right? And so, the praying that he did was obviously from when he was 50 and she was 13. So for 10 years.
No, he prayed the 10 years. People are supposed to wait.
I'm saying he waited each 10
years. 10 years he didn't pray. Because in the 10 years, why does it say 10 years? 10 years he waited. Like a couple waits 10
and
years.
at the end, when he would have to divorce
At the age of 60, then
yes,
he started praying.
then he prayed. At the end.
Only
At the end.
60, so.
At the end. Okay.
Was she really 23?
Had to be, because
What?
he was 37 at that
he was.
age.
Yes.
He was
That's
37
not a
at that age,
problem.
And now he's 60, 23
That's
years.
right.
Maybe 60 meant 1,000.
Right. Couldn't be. It couldn't
Lamaisa,
be.
Lamaisa, it was 60.
Okay, so the Zohar says, "Vayeta lo." I'll take the vayeta lo, ela vayechta lo, because the ayin, the way we spell vayeta is ayin taf resh. Yeah. And the ayin is mitchalef. What does that mean? There are times when you have a word in the Torah, and one of the ways of there are many ways how we delve into the secrets of the Torah to unravel the mysteries that are hidden below the words. One of the methods are the interchangeability of letters. Ayin, it's a rule. The ayin can be interchangeable with the chet. So therefore, we can take out the ayin and we can insert a chet. A chet. What does that mean? Ki chatira chata lo hakadosh baruch hu v'kiva lo ta. In other words, by his praying, and by inserting this word from the ayin to the chet, az vataha Rivka ishto. The reason that she became pregnant is because of what, not that he just prayed, but because of what his praying involved. Perush, shemitzad hamaracha lo hayta ruah lihirayon. From the system, from her female system, she could not give birth. Ki hayta kara mileida. She was childless, meaning she did not have the maracha. She didn't have the system. The system for giving birth, the whole system, was not there.
She didn't have a uterus.
What? Right. Ela b'sibat tefilato chata lo chatira dahainu sheshina. Because, in other words, chatira means he changed. Vayeta means that he prayed for her. But the Zohar tells us we want to go there's two ideas here. Besides that he prayed, because you can't take away the fact that it says that we never deny the literal sense. The literal sense is vayetar, he prayed for her. But because of this interchangeability between the ayin and the chet, what he did was that through his tefillah, he created a whole system, that whole female system in Rivka, that now she would be able to give birth, and therefore it says Vataha Rivka Ishto, and therefore she became pregnant. And the Zohar continues, Bore, Esim Shana Nishta Yitzchak im Ishto V'lo Yalda. 20 years, she was with Yitzchak, and she did not give birth. Ad Shitpaleh Tfilato. And why did it happen this way? First of all, why didn't he pray before? I mean, why did he have to wait until now? Says the Zohar, "V'hu mishum shehakadosh baruch hu chafetz b'tfilatam shel tzadikim."
Because he enjoys
That knowing that Rivka would be the mother of Yaakov, because like this, if she didn't give birth, he would have to marry somebody else because Yitzchak knew.
Why didn't he take another woman?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sarah gave him Hagar.
Just like he couldn't leave Israel, he couldn't have another woman.
What? Who?
It was too much din.
Well, we explained why Rivka was fitting for him. We explained that already because she had been brought up in that environment, that gave her the balance to be his soulmate. So maybe there was another woman out there, but she was certainly the balanced one.
Sarah was a soulmate of Avram, but she still gave him Hagar.
Right, but Yitzchak knew that Avram knew that Yitzchak would not be born from.
Agreed, but still, soulmate had nothing to do with it.
Well, he knew that too. Well, let's see what the Zohar says. Anyway, now the Zohar says that a kadosh baruch hu, God is waiting. God is desirous of the tefillot, of the prayers of the tzaddikim. B'sha'ah shemevakshim lefanav atfilah, ama she'ein tzichim. Because Hashem is waiting that they should ask for the tefillah. Ma'u hatam? Why? What's the reason for this? Kidei sheyitgadel v'yitosef mishkat kodesh al yidei tefillat hatzadikim l'kol mi shetzarich. In other words, she was gonna give birth anyway, because she was the soulmate, and it already was known that from Yitzchak and Rivka would come Yaakov. So the Zohar is asking, what is the purpose of him having to have to pray, since this miracle would have taken place anyway? So the Zohar reveals here something very interesting. That Hashem wants the tefillot of tzaddikim. He puts the tzaddik into such a circumstance, doesn't have children, etc. And now he's going to have to pray for tzaddikim. Although, if the person is the tzaddik, whatever was destined to happen is going to happen. That will not require the fact that he's a tzaddik. This is the revelation of the Zohar. The fact that he's a tzaddik, the fact that Yitzchak and Rivka were both righteous people, her female system was going to appear, whether Yitzchak prayed or he didn't pray. But the reason that the system was not installed in Rivka so that she can give birth, says the Zohar, because Hashem wanted the tefillah of the tzaddikim. Why did he want the tefillah of his Why? He's a tzaddik, he's righteous, he doesn't have to pray. The fact that he's righteous already makes the events occur. So tefillah, or to create such a miracle, was not necessary to have come about because of the prayer of Yitzchak. But when the tzaddik will be praying, when he's praying, if he is a tzaddik, then his prayers are to establish in the cosmos that anybody who is in a similar circumstance, now that his prayer is being drawn out because the tzaddik sees, like Yitzchak, that there's no marechet, and therefore the tefillah that the tzaddik will now, in his prayer, like Yitzchak now began to pray that there should appear a marechet, a system, a female system, then this was for all the people at that time, all the women that did not have a marechet, that could not give birth. His prayer was then for all of the people at that time that needed it. Because what the tzaddik does, says the Zohar, it opens up a channel, and once that channel is open, then the flow of the miracle, or the power to create marachot, to create a channel for women who could not give birth, is established. Ba'az afilu otam she'enim kedayim ne'enim. Even those women who would have no chance to give birth, but because of the tefillah of the tzaddik, and because the cosmos now has received a channeling from this tzaddik, then the whole atmosphere becomes one of such a nature, and therefore it tells us, Vayeta lo Hashem, and his prayer. So his prayer was not for Rivka, but for the entire world at the time. If one is a tzaddik, and therefore the tzaddik really doesn't have to pray for himself. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
You mentioned at the time. Why at the time, Rav?
What?
You mentioned the word 2 times at the time. This is for not to, no?
This is?
You use the word at the time, meaning for then, or that's for even now? As soon as
No, not for himself. It was not for himself, because he knew that whenever the time came that she would have to give birth to Yaakov, our female system would appear. So why does it say he prayed? He prayed so that, because Hashem wanted, he did not make the system appear, although it has to appear, and it will appear, only that he will then begin this prayer, and this prayer will be for everyone else. And the tzaddik understands that.
even for us, as soon as we did it, for us today.
That's right. So, what we would say that women who are childless and can't have children, when they hear this reading and with the Zohar consciousness, at this time, this is what's being injected. So even though these women are not entitled, said the Zohar, because of whatever reasons, not to give birth, this could all be changed by the reading of this week's Parsha.
You said last year, all the Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, they all had trouble.
All three of them.
It's not why? I mean, because for us, because Sarah didn't have anything, Rivka had halfway, Rachel had everything, she just couldn't give birth. So
Rachel had everything.
All the organisms,
right?
All the organs, but just she couldn't give birth. It was closed. So that's why it wasn't Stam. They all did it for us because Dafka they should
different. And Sarah, he's gonna say
Dafka, all of them couldn't.
Sarah could give birth.
Sarah couldn't.
No, I think he. Let's see what he's going to say. He's going to say that right now.
Say that Rivka could, but didn't. But Sarah couldn't.
No, Sarah, he says, didn't have a... Rivka did not have a marechet.
She didn't have a uterus.
That's right.
Sarah didn't have anything.
Anything. Okay, let's see what he says. Okay. Yitzchak hitpalel al ishto mishum shehaya yadeh shu eina kach ela ishto. Why did he pray? Because he knew that this had nothing to do with him. He knew that he had no problem, right? Aval lo haya yodea im meisha zu o me'acheret, and therefore it says lenochach ishto. Why was he praying for lenochach ishto? He should be praying, but because he knew he wasn't sure whether this was. Perush. Rabbi Asher goes on to explain. Ki yukshalo, ki nereme akatuv vayeta yisag lashem lenochach ishto ki akarahu asher hitpalel shanot ateva ki hayata akara. In other words, it's obvious. Why is he praying? Because he knew that he had to change the nature of Rivka because she was akara. And therefore, he was praying that and going against the teva, which without the marechet, without a female system, she couldn't give birth. So he wanted to change the whole nature of things, and that she should be able to give birth. And therefore, the Zohar asked, and therefore. What the Zohar is asking, Hare Sarah Haita Gam Kein Akara. Umikol Makom Lo Yitpalel Avraham L'Shanot Lo Et Ateba. It doesn't say Sarah also did not have a female system, and even though Avraham did not pray to change the nature of things. כי הצדיקים אינם מאמינים בעצמם שהם ראויים לנס ולשינוי הטבע. So, this seems to contradict what he said before. And that tzaddikim do not believe that they have the capability. They do not believe in themselves that they are of such a nature of a tzaddik, that includes Avraham, to change teva, to change something which is part of nature. Part of nature means that when there is no female system, there cannot be pregnancy. So therefore, Avram did not pray. He did not pray, and he's asking, why didn't he pray? Why did Yitzchak pray? Mataretz asher ki akarahi perusho. These words, ki akarahi. By Sarah, it doesn't say ki akarahi. It doesn't say that. It only says by Rivka in this pasuk. Perusho. Shal kain itpalel mikol sheyada ki akarahi v'lo hu atzmo ki yada beruach hachachma sheyasa mimenu Yaakov v'yud beit hashvatim ela sheylo yada im Rivka o me'acheret. He knew. Yitzchak knew that there was no question. From him would come the 12 children, 12 tribes. L'kein hitpalel stam sheyazalo Hashem yidbar sheyeh lo banim ki hu eina akar. So when it says that he was praying, again, he was not praying for Rivka. His wife, he was not.
He was praying because he wasn't sure.
Because he wasn't sure
So he wanted to see his wife.
whether it would be from Rivka or not. What he was praying, that what he knew, Baruch HaKodesh, what he knew, envisioned that he would have the 12 children, he was praying that Hashem should help him, that it should materialize. And because since he could have children, ein tzarich l'shinui hateva, and therefore there was no necessity to change the nature of things, because he knew how it would happen. He didn't know. Maybe it would be with another woman.
Right, you still. That's why he said he wanted to see his
And
wife.
therefore, v'zeh shemedayek hakatuv shitpalel lenochach ishto, when it says towards his wife, what did it mean that? Lenochach ishto stam, v'lo lenochach Rivka. Now, so what he's saying, it doesn't say lenochach Rivka. He's making, now this is another.
He's asking to see his wife.
What?
He's asking to see his wife.
That's right. Lenochach ishto, whoever that woman would be, and therefore it does not say Rivka. Ki lo aya mitpalal l'shanot et hateva b'zkuto. So, although before that was one way of interpreting what we said by Yeta Yitzchak, that he was going to change, he was going to bring down the change, and the change for everyone. Now there's another interpretation of the same verse, because he would never have prayed to change the nature bischuto. In other words, he's a tzaddik, so therefore he can pray and change, which he could. But it says now, the Zohar says, contrary to what it said before, he would not have changed. He would not have prayed to change the natural tendency of nature. But and you shouldn't ask, or we could raise the question, why was he praying all together? If he knew that he was going to have 12 children coming from him, so what was he praying? Well, what did the Zohar just get through saying? He wasn't praying for her to change the nature. What he was praying is, he knew that there had to be 12 children, so he was praying that, listen, bring him the woman, whoever that woman is, that will assist him in having these 12 children. But if he already knew that he was going to have the 12 tribes, so what's the difference? Why did he even have to pray? Why did he even have to pray that this woman, who would be able to give birth to Yaakov, who would have the 12 tribes, would appear? Why did he have to pray at all? Atamu ki hayem mityarei pen yigrom achet esa Yaakov. What he was praying for was not, as we said, he knew that Yaakov would be born. But what he was afraid, that maybe pen yigrom achet esa Yaakov, maybe something could happen, and Yaakov willingly, intentionally, may have caused a chet, meaning he may have caused an action, and we know that Yaakov did many things, as Yaakov, he was afraid that Yaakov.
How could he sin if he wasn't born yet?
Who? No, he was praying for the future for Yaakov, because he knew, let's say that he took away the birthright. He came to Yitzchak. Who said, "I want to bless." He wants to bless Esav, and it kind of, if we have time, it seems like he fooled his father. He said, I'm Yaakov. Remember, if you remember the story, that's in this week's Parsha, which we have to understand. Here Yaakov is, at the suggestion of his mother Rivka, go dress up with skin that when your father touches you, it'll appear very hairy, so he'll think maybe you're Yaakov, you're Yitzchak. So there were many things that Yaakov did that maybe could have upset. That while he knew that from himself Yaakov would be born, but what he was praying here was praying for Yaakov. Afal pi shivtiach lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu ki heitiv imcha v'sabti azaracha k'chol hayom mekam hayim at mitpalel. So what he's saying now is another interpretation. Ki harei anochi pen yavo vikani em alabanim. All right. So therefore, what it means over here, again, it's not a contradiction, but what this prayer of Yitzchak now extended into the world of the future. There was no Yaakov yet. He was praying, and there was no Yaakov, and he was praying that whatever Yaakov had done would not be considered as disrupting the normal flow. That's called chet. That he would create a kind of negative action, and there were several apparent negative actions, and that this would upset the flow of the 12 tribes, and therefore, again, so we see today. So we see in this parsha another interpretation, another tefillah that was going to assist and move into the future. Okay. Then the next verse continues, "Vayitrotusu habanim b'kirba," and the children, meaning there were obviously twins in there, were battling within her. And v'tomerim kein lama zeh anochi batelach lidrosh et Hashem. And she went to be to receive some answers from Hashem.
The Medrash says, it's just funny, you mentioned the 12 Shvatim. The Medrash says, I think it's the Medrash, that Rivka was supposed to have 12 tribes. 15, Shiftei Kaf. She was supposed to have 15 tribes coming from her. But because she said, Lama Zeh Anochi, what is this? She lost the right, and Yaakov had it.
That's a Medrash.
No, Yitzchak just davened that the 12 Shvatim should happen. And the Medrash says that the next step is
Bamazal Nochi, so we're saying that Rivka is saying, what do I need all this?
Whatever. There's some kind of explanation. But she was supposed to have 15 tribes.
15?
15. Shiftei Kaf.
Right.
That's what Medrash says. That's the Medrash.
Okay. Vayitrotzu. First the Zohar says, "V'shoel le'ezeh makom halcha lidrosh et Hashem." Where did she go? She went to ask Hashem, but where did she go? Says the Zohar, she went shalcha lebeit Ameda shel Shem ve'ever. There was a yeshiva where Yaakov ultimately went and also studied, where there's a midrash that says that Yitzchak had also gone to study there. Vayitrotusu habanim b'keba, mipnei sheshem aya oto rasha Esav she'asa milchama im Yaakov. Says the Zohar that what was going on over here was the ultimate battle. Wow. The ultimate battle that became manifest in this world up until this very day, already began in her pregnancy. But we'll understand right away what does that mean. Vayitrotusu perush nishtabru, k'mo she'omrim ratzat et mocho. And they were battling. What does that mean? Esav haya mitzad harochev ala nachash. What does it mean here about Esav? Are we talking about a person? Yes, we're talking about a person. But we're talking about a person that was totally encapsulated. He encapsulated the nachash. Satan, in his entirety, was encapsulated within Esav. You have to understand, how could that, how could from Yitzchak and Rivka, where would the seed for an encapsulation of the totality of Satan come?
Left to the left.
What?
Left to the left.
Okay, but still, the left of Yitzchak was pure.
Yitzchak came from Avram.
And he's going to ask later, and it says that Yitzchak loved Esau.
Right.
Yeah, so the Zohar says, because they're both left columns. Yeah, but still in all, the left column of Yitzchak was pure, and Rivka was pure. Where did this seed come to have an encapsulation? Not only just a bad child, but the totality of the Nachash. And Yaakov haya mitzad arochev al kisei hashalom. And Yaakov came from the point Hashalom HaKadosh, mitzad Hashemesh. And Yaakov was just the reverse. Yaakov is P'chinat Zeiram Pin, Shurochev ala Kisei, on the holy throne. How does this come about? Borei, Mishum she'esav nimshach achar oto hanachash, halach Yaakov imo b'mima, k'mo nachash shehu arom, v'olech b'mima. He's not answering. I mean, meanwhile, he's not answering that. But what he wants to say now, we just got through saying that Yaakov went with Orma. He fooled his father. He said that he came in place of Esav to receive the blessing. By what right? By what right? By what right did he come to his father and say that he was and take away the blessing of Esav? Since we know although we'll have some answers later, how did Yaakov do such a thing? But still in all, we know that Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav. Didn't want to bless Yaakov. Because he told Esav, go prepare me a meal because I want to bless you. And he did that. Those words are clear. Those words are clear. So the Zohar wants to say that because Esav encapsulated the Nachash, and everything about the Nachash, everything about Satan, is how he fools us, how he creates conditions by which we do things and realize later how stupid we were. All of the stupidities that we all do in our lives, in whatever area. Then later we say, how could I have been so stupid as to have done this? Because, why? Because that's Satan. Satan comes and convinces you in falsehood, because Satan knows the truth, that if he's going to convince you to make this step in business, and then you realize later you made a mistake, if he didn't fool you, he has to convince you that what you see in the way that will bring about chaos in your life, he clothes it and he paints the whole picture that now you're so convinced. But the truth of the matter is, it's mirmat. It's fooling. What do you mean it's fooling? Because the moment Satan gets you to conduct yourself in the way he wants you to conduct yourself, so that brings about chaos in whatever form it appears, it came about because he had to fool us. Because later we even say, how could I have been so stupid? You weren't so stupid. Satan enclosed you with his mirma, with his falsehood, and gave you an impression and painted such a vivid picture of how this would be the right track to take, and that a day later or even 5 minutes later, after you had made the decision and it's too late to retract your decision, you say, how could I have done something as stupid as that? Because he had painted and clouded the true picture. This is the issue. So therefore, because Esav came from that, Yaakov, to combat the effectiveness of preventing this kind of mirma, this kind of illusion that the Satan has the power to weave around us. Therefore, what they were fighting here, and we said they were fighting already what the future would be, at the very source, the only way that we would be able to combat the effectiveness of Satan is by going with and creating illusions at the same time. שפירושו שהולך במרמה ומעלליו של יעקב ועשיו היה כמו נחש. וכך היה צריך להיות. And therefore it is necessary that when we're dealing with Satan, we must go with falsehood. Although you might say, but a true person, how could he get involved with deceitfulness?
How do you know it's Satan?
What? And how do you know it's Satan?
How do you know it's Satan?
Right?
I've heard many people say that. Well, that's Satan, so it's okay, I can lie,
Yeah.
and I don't have to tell the truth.
That's right.
Yeah. But, first of all, he's establishing for us why, when it is Satan, you're permitted to go with deceitfulness. Because the power of because you fight fire with fire, meaning there's no choice. The only way you can remove, that's what the Zohar is saying, the only way you can remove deceitfulness is by being deceitful. But then the question is, how do I know in this case that it is Satan?
It's easy to go around and say this is Satan.
Right.
What?
Satan.
It's Satan, so now I can lie.
Now I can keep
Feel
it.
like a lie.
Right. All right? וכך היה צריך להיות כדי להמשיך את עשב אחר אותו הנחש וייפרד מיעקב, because it was be the only way how Yaakov could separate himself from Esav. ולא יהיה לו חלק עמו לא בעולם הזה ולא בעולם הבא. And therefore, it says, למדנו, הבא להורגך השכם Ata betargo. There's a Talmud, and there's also here in the Zohar, that when someone comes, Chas v'Sholom, wants to kill you, although it says you're not allowed to kill, right? Same idea. Someone's coming to kill you. Are you allowed to kill him? It says you're not allowed to take a life.
Absolutely.
The answer is that if someone comes against you, Chas v'Sholom, to kill you, then there's no question that you're allowed to kill him. Although you're not permitted to kill, in that instant where you can see, what happens if he says, I thought he was coming to kill me. I thought he wanted to come to kill me. The other ones, and he comes two witnesses and says, he told us he's only coming to threaten the other person. The two witnesses say about now this one that was killed, right? He had come against him. It appears that he's out to kill him. And now the Talmud and the Torah and the Zohar says that if someone comes towards you and wants to kill you, you can kill him. But now come two witnesses and say that this person had no intention of killing him. He just wanted to threaten him. He wanted to frighten him. Now, he didn't take it like that. It appeared to him that he was coming to kill him. What happens then? What is that considered?
Unintentional homicide.
What's that?
Yes.
Oh, self-defense. That's the answer. Self-defense.
A lot of people die that way.
What do you mean self-defense? Yeah, that's what. Yeah, how many times?
Somebody
Most of
comes
the
in
time.
back door and they think it's a robber. And
That's right. The self-defense. But comes witnesses later and said, no, but this person never had any intention of killing. Okay? Meanwhile, this is what so we have to. Then it says, meanwhile, we're leaving this in abeyance because it says that Esav came out first, and then his brother came out, and the hands of the brother were holding on to the
Achilles heel.
Achilles heel. And Vayikra Shemo Yaakov, and therefore he was called his name, meaning it wasn't Yitzchak or Rivka that called him that, but Vayikra Shemo Yaakov. And they called him Yaakov. Why do they call him Yaakov? Because he was holding on to the Achilles heel.
What does Yaakov
So what?
do with Achilles heel?
That's right. But the Ba'akev Esav, Akev means the Achilles heel, and therefore they called him Yaakov. Therefore that's his name. Yaakov.
What's this?
What? I mean, just because he held on to him, I mean, what's so
Achilles heel
significant
have to
over here? Okay. Be'ekav et achav, says the Zohar, Hainu, shehishra oto lamata be'ekav ahu kloma, shefridu min hakdusha, voridu l'tzad hatumah anikra ekav, liyot b'siyum akdosha. וזה שכתוב וידוב אוחזת בעקב עשיו, ששם ידיו על אותו העיקר כדי להכניע תחת הקדושה. We said that what was going on is that Yaakov wanted to become separated. He wanted to become separated, meaning that there would be no influence of the Nachash on himself. He was doing this inside. This was the battle that was going on. That this would be the support that we would have forever. Because when we talk about Esav, we're not talking about what?
She could never have given birth that way, though.
Who?
I mean, they could never have been birthed that way.
What do you mean?
Because in order for him to hold on to Yaakov's Achilles heel, he had to be born with his feet down and his head up with his hand out.
Yeah.
And then Yaakov had to come feet first.
They both went out head first.
Feet first.
No, head first.
Head first and
Head first. Both.
Who grabbed who's?
Both. Yaakov grabbed the Achilles heel of Esav.
Who came out first?
Yeah, right.
Yaakov grabbed Esau's Achilles heel?
Yes, that's what it says.
Ah.
Vachrechen, and afterwards, Yasa Echav, and his brother went out, V'yado, and the hand,
No, Yado.
the hand of the second child,
Yeah, it was.
Ochezet Ba'akev Esav, held on to the Achilles heel of Esav,
It's different.
and therefore they called him Yaakov, because he held on to the Achilles heel. Held on to the Achilles heel. What does the Zohar want to say here? That this way, shehefridu min hakdusha, voridu l'tzad hatomah hanikrat ekev.
Sensory pain.
Because the Achilles heel,
It's a pain sensory, aside from that.
In the metaphysical, it's supposed to be.
well, there's another interpretation. Hainu shehishra oto lamata be'ekev ahi. Kloma shehifridu min hakdusha. He separated, by holding on to the Achilles heel, he separated Esav from holiness. Voridu l'tzad hatoma anikrat ekev. Those in the Achilles heel is where the negative energy, where negative energy becomes manifest in that spot. That's why what's so important about the Achilles heel.
Sciatic nerve, is it?
No, it's
Higher.
What's that?
It doesn't go down that far.
It doesn't go down that far. Huh?
I'm just curious
What?
whether
What?
that's something.
What? I mean, first of all, we know people speak about the Achilles heel, but what's so?
Metaphysically, it's supposed to be when the soul leaves the body, but in biology, it's just a tendon. It's important.
It's a tendon.
Yeah, but what became so important? People speak about the Achilles heel, right?
No, they test for pain. It's a monitor for pain.
So where did all this talk, in the world?
Sure.
They talk about,
If they want to measure pain,
It started with Greek mythology.
what?
It started with Greek mythology. That I forget who was dipped in something to make them immortal, but had to be helped by the heels, and that was a weak spot. Who was it? Achilles himself, right? So someone
Achilles.
helped Achilles by the heel. Biologically, I don't know if it has any significance. And acupuncture to Europe by the kidney point.
Nothing to do with the sciatic. Okay.
Isn't it the same segment of the Yaakov had fight with the angel?
That's what I was talking about. That.
Well, anyway, through holding on to the Achilles heel, then he made him become. He became dominated by the kedusha by holding on to that Achilles heel. Why did he do that? In that way, the power of kedusha became dominant over Esav because he held on to him over there.
They're out there now.
What?
Close them.
What'd you say?
I just reminded myself that the garbage. I hear the truck. Put it all out now so it doesn't have to stay over Shabbos. Nothing to do with Achilles.
All right, it has size. Over there is where he created a dominion of. That's why the Torah is telling us that, and that's the significance. That through this action, the power of kedusha, the power of positivity, had dominion over the
Anger?
over negativity.
Anger.
Then there is another explanation. Perush acher.
This is the Achilles tendon, right? Heel. Unless you're talking about the points that are on the side.
Anger.
Right? The points that are on the side.
It starts off for you.
under the heel is the sciatic nerve.
Good.
Next to the sciatic nerve.
That's what I said.
Heel would be your sciatic reflex.
And under the heel is
All right. Let's see. We have a little more Zohar here. Maybe we'll get a little more clarity. Perush acher l'katav b'yado ochezet shelo yochol Yaakov latzeit lepared mimenu mikol v'kol. On the contrary, Yaakov could not become separated. Ela v'yado nishara ochezet be'ekev Esav. V'yado hayna halvana she'ah nukva hanikrat yado shel teferet shu Yaakov. Shenitkaseh ora mishum ekev de'esav. Not that it's just not the opposite, but it's another interpretation that teach us that because of the Achilles heel of Esav, because of that we would never become separated totally. That Yaakov could not totally become separated. What?
From the Yetzirah.
From the Yetzirah. V'alkein yitzarech lo liYaakov lelechet imo b'chachma kidei lidchoto lemata v'yitabeg b'mkomo b'sita achra v'yipared legamer min hakadusha. Therefore, what had to happen is what happened later. In order that he took away the blessing, he took away the b'chor, that at birth, in other words, when a person is born, that he could not totally remove himself, even though he's born from Rivka, and he's born from Yitzchak, but still in all, there is a part there that we cannot become separated from the Satan. Vayikra Shemo Yaakov, Hainu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Karavade Et Shemo Yaakov. In other words, who called him? It doesn't say who called him. He says that God Himself called him Yaakov. What does this mean? Kara Vayikra Shemo Yaakov. Kara Shemo Yaakov, Nikra Shemo Lo Katuv. In other words, it shouldn't have said that he called him. It should have said, and therefore he was called. Not that he called him that. Okay? And Levadei Ra HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ki Oto Nachash HaKadmoni Chacham Hu Lahara. Very wise. As we say, Satan, smarter than most of us. Not all of us. Kevish Sheba Yaakov, and because Yaakov came into the world, Yaakov became the antithesis of the Nachash. Alken kara oto HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yaakov dahainu al shem chachmato sheyada la'akev et hanachash ulafrido me'akdusha. Not that he did become separated, but the power of Yaakov was that he, and this is what when we hear the Parsha on Shabbat, we're trying that we draw from this birth of Yaakov the power that we should have, that we should be able to overcome the Achilles heel of Esav. And that we could separate Satan from Kedusha. What does it mean? There's just like we said, well, you can always say Satan, Satan, Satan. Therefore, I'm allowed to go with deceit and so on. So what we hope to draw out from the reading of this week's Parsha, that when there is Satan around us, that we should draw from the energy of Yaakov, that we should be able to see clearly what Satan is attempting to do with us, and therefore we could become separated, and therefore take the appropriate action to fool him. Well, there's a lot of things that we're trying to draw out, that we can draw out, so that we can have some energy, some strength on how to defeat Satan, because that's the whole problem. That's the whole problem, because he is so smart, and he does cloud and make the picture in such a way that we become so convinced that this is the avenue that we should pursue.